Hello everyone, this is Sam Carleton and welcome back to another video. Now that you have seen my painting skills, a part-time position which has brought more debt than any financial gains, for today's video we're going to compare two interesting vehicles, the new 2021 BMW 4 Series and the previous generation BMW 4 Series. They are very much similar in terms of the trim levels. And of course, one is the 430 xDrive, so is the other one. If this is your first time watching my videos, I do a lot of comparisons between different brands and of course, previous generations and new models. And this is one perfect example for this video. What to expect from this video? I'm going to compare them head to head in terms of pricing, technology, features, and of course, is the new BMW 4 Series better than the older generation? How do they drive? How does the new one feel on the road? Is it faster? Is it more comfortable? And of course, the usual test for the cabin noise. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and like, because I'm going to compare the new 4 Series to other vehicles. But for today, we're going to compare the new generation versus the older one. Before we get into details, and of course, how these two compare, we want to talk about the elephant in the room, the grille. In person, the kidney grille looks great, but then you walk away from it, things become complicated and not so appealing. After spending some time with it, it grows on you, and you change your opinion eventually. But here is an interesting fact. BMW has had similar designs. It shouldn't be shocking as if this is the first time. They were of course not as wide as this one, but definitely close to this design. Now, it took some time for me to get used to the idea of this kind of style, but once you start spending time with this car and you take it to certain locations, of course, not from far away, it looks very sexy and it looks very bold design. Some will agree with it, some don't. I don't mind it. I actually like it. And I think the M4 looks so much better than this, of course. But yes, I get it. It's a massive grille that takes over the entire design of the car. But I think they're doing something here. There's a new change, a new design, and time will show whether this thing is good looking or if people are going to hate it or not. Now let's move on to prices, and let's talk about the price for the new model versus the older generation. Now, for the new model, of course, you will be paying slightly more, but the difference actually is not massive between the two. So at this point, looking at the prices side by side, I will say that the 4 Series, the new model, looks far better deal than the older generation. Now, that of course depends if you like the actual design. Now let's move on to the exterior design changes. The front end is very much visible, as you can see. There is a difference from headlights, which are now definitely more advanced. And of course, you got standard LED headlights. The cornering lights are slimmer in design and of course, taper towards the kidney grille. Two U-shaped daytime running light elements in each headlights are the most pronounced feature. The turning signals consist of 3 glass blades units of each front light assembly. The side profile has changed as well. If you look carefully, this year, no side airflow grille, which was used in the previous model. The mirrors remain similar, but not the same. One change I found by accident was the actual windshield wiper. In the older models, the sprinkler for the fluid was located below the wipers. Now they're located on top of the wider blades, which is a new interesting feature they have used in this model. Standard brakes on the 430i and 430 xDrive coupes are vented discs with single piston floating calipers front and of course the rear. The M440i xDrive is equipped with vented disc with the M Sport brakes with blue calipers featuring vented disc with 4 piston front, fixed and a single piston floating rear calipers. The M Sport brakes with the red calipers are optional only on the M440i xDrive Coupe. The 430i and 430 xDrive Coupes offer a choice of optional M Sport brakes with either blue or red calipers. Now, the one that we have in this video are actually blue. If you look at the previous generation, they were painted in gray. And of course, in the previous generation, you also had the option to upgrade to different design. Now, let's talk about dimensions. Is the new model bigger than the previous generation? BMW says that compared to the previous generation, the 4 Series Coupe, the new 4 Series is 5.2 inches longer, 1 inch wider, and 0.4 inches taller, and features a 1.6 inch longer wheelbase and a 1.4 inch wide front and 1.2 inch wider rear tracks. But is it actually more spacious? In fact, the trunk remains the same, even though the new 4 Series is bigger. Also, the new model offers a powered liftgate and hands-free tailgate. Just slide your foot under and it will open or close. But here's an interesting thing that I found. The new 4 Series has powered front row seats to be able to get into the second row easily. But during my usual test, it was hard to get in the new Series compared to the older model. As you can see from this video, even coming out of the car, I was struggling. Meanwhile, in the older model, as you can see, it was definitely much easier. In terms of the driver's side seating position or space, both are very similar. The only slight difference between these two is the roof, which in my opinion, I find it better in the older model. You get more space, and when you exit for someone my height, I find the older generation to be slightly better. Now let's talk about what do these two offer under the hood. Well, first of all, you still get a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in the new model. BMW also says the new model is actually faster than the older generation. It corners better, it has a better suspension setup, it's very quick off the start, and of course it performs better than the older generation. Here's an interesting fact. The new model is actually heavier than the previous generation. One reason could be is because it's bigger. But looking at the actual specs side by side, of course, we know more horsepower, and at the same time, it is quicker off the start. But when I take it off for a test drive, I'm going to talk about how different it is and if it's actually any faster, because I was a bit surprised. In terms of the rear end, of course, things have changed quite a lot. From the tail lights, the actual body shape as well has changed. And now you have a more aggressive rear end from the bumper all the way through. The interesting fact about this year is that, which I very much like, the new generation offers a single exhaust on each side, and it rumbles really well and it sounds pretty good. The older generation, which I did not like at all, it had twin exhaust on one side. Not the biggest fan, but this time BMW has fixed that problem, which I very much like. Now, let's talk about the interior. Let's talk about what do these two offer. If you've ever watched a new generation BMW 3 Series interior, it is exactly the same as that generation. But how does it compare to the older model? First of all, the steering wheel design has changed completely. Also, the steering button option, now it's not under the steering column, is located onto the steering wheel. The cluster, we have a full digital cluster, similar to the 3 Series, BMW X7, and so on. The infotainment system, of course, it is updated. Now you have a bigger screen, it is touchscreen. The older model was touchscreen, and of course, it had a scroll button located onto the center. The infotainment system now has, of course, the new software offered by BMW. It is more intuitive, a lot of option. The map is much more clear, and of course the cameras. The BMW model that we have for today's video, the new generation, does not have a 360 camera, but you have the option to add all those features, of course, with an extra cost. The previous generation had a much more smaller screen, and of course not as intuitive, but again, not totally outdated. You're still getting Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in both, and of course you're still getting the wireless charging pad in both vehicles. So some things have remained the same. Heated seats, cooling seats, and so on. Things haven't changed completely. More so on the design aspect and of course the software update. Now, one thing that I found disappointing with the new generation was actually the power handbrake. This year they took the standard manual option for the handbrakes. This time they offered a power button which is located into the center. Some people will like it, some people will not. I prefer the older one. It's just more practical in my opinion. Now let's talk about the interior design. Although the previous generation, it's quite old, it's been almost 6 years since the first time BMW introduced that kind of interior design, the new model versus the older one is actually not totally different. I still think the older generation is very much up to date, still offers quite a lot of features, a lot of great design from the cluster all the way, the dashboard, the entire thing looks pretty good inside, especially with the red leather interior that we have for this model. It looks very, very good. It is pretty comfortable inside and very spacious for the passenger in the front and of course the driver. Now, things change a bit, of course, for the seats. The seats in the new model, I find them to be more comfortable. They hug you nicely. They're both power And on both models, you have the option to adjust the bolsters, which for some people is very important. Now they have covered everything you need to know about the interior. We know that it is a new vehicle, offers quite a lot of features, and it is very different from the previous generation. Of course, the exterior design. But how does it drive compared to the older model? Is it actually faster? Is it quieter inside? Is it more comfortable? That is the goal for next. We're going to take it for a test drive, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. But for now, let's go for a drive. Okay, let's go for a test drive. That was nice. This thing pulls out further. Oh, and then it goes back. Interesting. That is quite interesting. Let's start it. It's so windy today and my hair is literally everywhere. I couldn't even do a video in front of them because it's extremely windy, so I had to do it at home. But let's start with this bad boy. Let's put this in a proper position. Manual adjusted steering column as well. Audio system. Here's the first thing I don't like about the new BMW. Power handbrakes. Do not like power handbrakes. I like the older model. It's so much nicer. Now, let's go for a drive. That's one thing that I dislike about this. Here's the other thing I noticed right away. The steering wheel got really thick. This thing is nice and grippy. I like it. The paddle shifters now are slightly bigger as well. Of course, the interior is exactly like the 3 Series. It's just moving from that to this. The only difference is this is a 2-door and of course bigger grille than the 3 Series. That I didn't understand about BMW. Why did they put the big grille in the new 4 Series but not in the new 3 Series? Like, were they questioning the design? Like, were they questioning the design of this? They're like, oh, we can't put it on that one because we just want to make sure that if they don't like one, they can pick the other one, right? I think that's probably what happened because the 3 Series looks perfectly fine to me. It's a big grille from the older model, but not at this level. I don't know. That's interesting, right? But I have mixed feelings about this car. I have really mixed feelings. And Ryan and I were talking about this, and he said the exact same thing. Now, let me put it to sport mode, and let's get it a bit exciting. Sport individual, sport, okay. Whoa! Okay. It's very stable on the road. That's one thing I noticed with the older model. I just test drove the older generation of the 4 Series, and this has slightly better brakes. They're very touchy. They can brake pretty quickly. That's one thing I noticed with this. Whoa! It's nice. And here's the other thing I love about this. In the 3 Series, in the 430i xDrive, they put a single exhaust on each side, which makes the car looks so much better than the older generation that had single twin exhaust on one side. It looked a bit weird, kind of left out from the whole lineup. Now it looks more part of the whole lineup with even the 440i. So it's just a matter of you getting more power on one versus this, but you're still getting that kind of exhaust. I like that. That's something that I like about this car. The interior, absolutely stunning. Love the design overall of the new 3 Series, the new generation BMW from 7 Series, 5 Series, and the 3 Series. I like this kind of system. I like the one that Mercedes has where the cluster and the infotainment system is all together. This, it's separated. It does the job fine in my opinion. Also, in the older generation, the wireless charging pad was located in the center, and my phone today couldn't fit in there because it has the case. And here it fits easily. It's hidden right in there without any problem. It looks nice on the interior for sure, and it drives better. It drives so much better than the older model, from the suspension system, the overall steering as well, extremely direct, and it is quite powerful. Nice. Okay, let's put it into sport individual. This is where you basically there we go, configure. Let's put sport, everything sport. It didn't turn off the traction in sport mode. The older model had a sport plus which turned off the traction. This it didn't. Let me catch up to the speed. There we go. Nice. I'm not 100%
100% about the power. I need to admit this. I'm not 100% of the power. I feel like the older model felt faster for some reason. This feels more stable on the road, but I don't know, like I'm very, very confused. Like I drove that, I feel like this is faster, but then when you push it, it doesn't react as quickly as that. This is supposed to make 7 horsepower more, 36 pound-feet of torque. I feel the older model actually drives faster than this. I have to admit that. That is something that I'm shocked about it, because the numbers say that this is actually faster, even the 0 to 60. That to me felt so much faster than this. I'm actually shocked. I am really shocked. It's so much quicker. Let's put into manual transmission. Downshift. I think in manual transmission might change my opinion. Here we go. This lane assist is annoying the hell out of me. Let me turn off the traction, because I think probably the traction is what's limiting the car. Okay, traction is off. Transmission manual. Okay, didn't change much. Did not change much. Here's what I noticed though. Suspension system in here is slightly stiffer. In Sport Plus, in the older model, didn't change much. In here is slightly stiffer. The steering is extremely stiff in the Sport Plus, which I like, because you want to have that direct steering when you're going to a corner. This feels like a proper performance style driving. I like that. In the older model, kind of wobbly, not so direct. But again, like even in manual mode, this thing doesn't feel as fast as the older model. I'm actually shocked. I'm very shocked with this. I expected this to be faster based on numbers, but this is seriously not as fast as that. To third. I don't know. The older model to me felt so much faster. Driving them back to back, my take so far is that I like the older model. It drove faster, it felt faster. This is quick, but it's not at the same level. Like I find the older model about 20 to 30% faster in my opinion. This is kind of like struggling for some reasons. Let's do this quickly. Nice. Okay. Okay, in manual mode, it is actually faster than the older model. Mostly the transmission, not necessarily the car. The transmission shifts faster than the older model, in my opinion. It's so much quicker. It drives really nice too. I enjoy this. And here's the other thing too. The engine, you don't hear it. The cabin noise that I did, this showed about 62.5. The older model was about 63.8. 62.5 versus 63.8. One reason I notice is because the engine in here, I hear the engine at higher RPM much less than I did in the previous generation. In the older model, I heard the engine a lot more. I also hear the exhaust in here slightly more. I just think that the older model, in my opinion, is quicker. Like that's something that I'm still shocked about it. Like this is not, it's not exciting at this point in terms of power delivery. The older model, like you push it, like listen to this in the older model. Now in the new model, third, fourth, that was quick shifting, and fifth, downshift into fourth, fifth, sixth. Oh yeah, shifting I'll give it to. It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick in shifting. Okay, I gotta let's put it into drive mode now. Let's leave it in there. Here we go. Let's put it into comfort mode, and let's talk about, and then turn on traction because I had it off. Okay, now it becomes a standard vehicle. I like what BMW has done with the interior on this. I still have mixed feelings about the exterior. I like how this thing drives even in comfort mode. The steering got really, really light right now. And of course you get a lot more technology here, sharper infotainment system. The exterior, again, I have mixed feelings, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have the same thing. It looks better when you're closer to it than it does when you're looking from far away. It kind of looks like a pig, in my opinion, from far away, but closer it looks much nicer. I actually saw the BMW M3 and the M4 in person, and I like those for some reasons compared to this. This looks nice. It drives really nice. It's nice and comfortable. Quiet inside. That's one thing I noticed with this. The suspension setup, it's almost perfect and much better, much more improved from the older generation. It feels tight. It feels put together. It feels solid. It feels strong. I like it. A bit bouncy even in comfort mode, but it's not unbearable. I like this thing. I just don't think that this is actually faster than the older model for some reason. It might do 0 to 60 faster than the older model, but when it comes to when you're pushing the older model, you can actually feel the speed much better than in here. In here, I feel like I'm not at the same level for some reason. I'm not convinced that this is actually faster than the older generation. I understand they've done the test and all that, but I think the older generation might be actually faster. I dare you to actually take them for a test drive back to back and tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm just going crazy over this. I feel like this is actually slower than the older model. I don't know. I'm actually shocked myself. I love this, don't get me wrong. I love the new technology. I love a lot of features that it offers, but I just don't think this is as quick as that. It's comfortable though. It's quiet inside. It drives nicely. Visibility in here, similar to the older model. Things haven't changed much, except the fact that this is actually lower. As you can see from the test that I did to come in and out, entry and exit test that I do for both vehicles, I found this to be a bit hard to get in. This feels like it's much lower to the ground. I don't know. I'm still not 100% about this. I like it, but I'm not 100% convinced that this is a lot better than the older model. With that in mind, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this. At this point, I'm about 60-40. 60 about the new one, 40 about the older one. But that was it for today. And don't forget to check out Performance BMW and, of course, our good friend Ryan, who helped me out with this video. Stay safe. Cheers.